3 minutes and 19 seconds. That's how long it took my father to threaten a lawsuit and cut me out of his will. I'm standing in my Denver kitchen, the Rockies burned into the window like a postcard, one hand on a half-packed box, when my phone lights up. Mark Bennett. Philadelphia area code. Same old tone, no hello, no how are you. Be in Charleston next Saturday, he says. Rehearsal dinner. Connor's future depends on this. I laugh, the kind that snaps a truth free. Dad, I moved to Denver 8 months ago. You didn't notice. Silence. Then the line he's rehearsed, you're coming. Family shows up. 3 reasons I won't, I say. 1, we're not a perfect family, you just need a prop. 2, I don't perform for strangers. And 3, I don't live in your story anymore. If you've ever been told to play your part and keep your head down, stay with me. This isn't about a dinner. It's about rewriting the guest list to your life and choosing your own seat. The apartment smells like fresh cardboard and takeout soy sauce. Stacks of labeled boxes line the wall: kitchen, dev gear, books, keep. Through the wide window, the Rockies sit in a clean winter light, sharp and unbothered. Jules Park staggers in with a box and drops it near the door. Maya, this thing's a kettlebell with pages, she groans, brushing hair from her face. From the kitchen, Sam Rivera wipes his hands on a dish towel. All clean in there. Coffee survived, he says, like it's the most important news of the day. I sink onto the hardwood floor, letting the cold seep through my jeans. It steadies me. This is where the background noise ends. No more family group chats I was never added to, no more invitations sent to an address they never cared to learn. Just my name on the lease. My signature on the offer letter. My timeline, not theirs. Jules studies me for a moment. You told your parents about Denver yet? I smile without teeth. They don't even know my last address. Outside, a gust rattles the window. Inside, the silence feels expansive, empty of permission, full of choice. When people ask what happened, I don't start with the fights. I start with the scorekeeping. State Science Fair, I built a wildfire prediction model from weather data, the kind of project that impressed the judges enough to call my parents and use the word exceptional. That night at dinner, they said, "That's nice, honey," and then spent the rest of the meal replaying Connor's practice goal, at a game that didn't even count. When I made honor roll every single semester, my report cards barely got a glance. But when Connor made varsity football, my parents threw him a party so big my dad bought a new grill just for the occasion. The final blow came at 18. Connor wanted to attend a pricey private college. My parents covered everything, full tuition, a luxury apartment, spending money. When it was my turn, they sat me down for a financial reality talk and told me the education fund was gone. You'll have to figure it out yourself, they said. I learned 2 truths in that house: applause belonged to Connor, and silence was free if you aimed it at me. I'm not being dramatic. I'm keeping minutes. So I turned to the only committee that ever voted in my favor, me. I applied for every scholarship I could find, from national STEM awards to obscure community grants. In the end, I landed a full ride in cybersecurity, tuition, books, the works. For everything else, I worked 2 part-time jobs, mornings at the campus IT help desk, nights troubleshooting for a small e-commerce startup. Dinner was instant noodles in my dorm, seasoned with ambition. Weekends, I camped out in empty computer labs, not because I loved the fluorescent lighting, but because home had never been a place where my work meant anything. Slowly, I built my own infrastructure, budget spreadsheets, an emergency fund, and a folder on my hard drive labeled receipts. Inside were emails, date-stamped photos, and notes about every moment that proved my life was my own. Not to weaponize, at least not yet, but to remember. By graduation, I didn't need anyone's permission to move forward. I had become fluent in my own rescue. The offer came in on a Tuesday afternoon, a Denver-based cybersecurity startup looking for a lead security engineer. Salary up 90% from my current role, a chunk of equity, and projects that sounded like they were daring me to say yes. That night, I opened Zillow and circled a Sloan's Lake townhouse like it was already mine. 3 bedrooms, a small backyard, walking distance to the water. I penciled it into my spreadsheet, 20% down in 12 months. The numbers lined up like they'd been waiting for me. We celebrated with pizza on the bare floor, Jules and Sam clinking soda cans like champagne flutes. In the corner, my checklist read: negotiate, sign, pack, breathe. By midnight, I stood at the window, the city lights glinting against the Rockies. I tried a sentence out loud, just to see how it felt. I'm proud of myself. It was awkward at first, like wearing a new jacket that still had the tags on. Then, after a moment, it fit. And in my reflection, I saw someone I would choose on purpose. When my father's name lit up my phone, I already knew this wasn't a call I wanted to take. Still, I swiped to answer, because part of me wanted to hear exactly how he'd frame it. "Be in Charleston next Saturday," he said. No greeting, no context. "It's Connor's rehearsal dinner. His future depends on this." I could hear the command in his voice, the same tone that had filled our house growing up, the one that expected instant obedience. 3 reasons I won't be there, I told him, my voice steady. 1, we're not a perfect family, you just need me as a prop. 2, I don't perform for strangers to make us look whole. And 3, I let the pause stretch. I moved to Denver 8 months ago. You didn't even notice. Silence. Then the snap in his tone, "You're coming. Family shows up." "Not this time," I said, and hung up before he could reload the script. The phone kept vibrating, Mom, Connor, numbers I didn't recognize. I turned it face down on the counter, slid salmon into a hot pan, and let the sizzle fill the room. Roasted vegetables waited in the oven, the timer ticking softly. When I finally sat down at my own table, with my own food and my own view of the mountains, I realized I hadn't just declined an invitation. I'd chosen my side, and it wasn't theirs. The next call came less than 24 hours later. No small talk, no pretense, just the threat. "If you don't show up in Charleston, I'll have you removed from the will. Don't test me, Maya." I glanced at the spreadsheet glowing on my laptop, my savings balance, the equity vesting schedule for my new job, the projected closing date for the townhouse. I almost laughed. "Dad," I said, my voice calm but edged, "my income outpaces the family combined. Keep the will." The line went quiet. I could almost hear the gears turning, shock, then something softer. His voice warmed a fraction. "We're proud of you, you know. We just want the family together." That warmth wasn't pride, it was interest. And I wasn't for sale. I ended the call without another word, blocked his number, and did the same to Mom's and Connor's. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. Evelyn Bennett. My grandmother. The only one in my family who'd ever shown up for me without an agenda. "I'm not calling to pressure you," she said as soon as I picked up. "I just want to make sure you're okay." "I am," I told her, and this time, I didn't have to convince myself it was true. Charleston was dressed for the cameras that night, soft lighting, white tablecloths, wine glasses lined like soldiers. But you can't stage manage truth forever. Olivia Hart's parents had done their homework. They knew Connor had a sister. They knew I wasn't there. And they knew enough about me to understand the absence wasn't about distance, it was about history. At the rehearsal dinner, my parents smiled like mannequins. The first excuse was that I was sick. The second, that I had a work trip. By dessert, I was apparently traveling abroad. The lies kept shifting, and so did the room. Guests leaned in to whisper. Olivia's mother's smile tightened until it looked carved. Her father's jaw never unclenched. Connor's eyes kept scanning the door as if I might appear in a final, cinematic moment. I didn't. By Monday morning, a potential investor for Connor's new business venture had politely requested to postpone their meeting until certain family matters were resolved. In the world my parents worshipped, appearances, reputation, alliances, that was the equivalent of an earthquake. And I hadn't lifted a finger. 2 weeks later, I stood in a sunlit office, signing my name on a stack of papers that made the townhouse officially mine. The pen glided easily, like it knew this was the hand of someone who had built her life from the ground up. 3 bedrooms. A small backyard. A view of Sloan's Lake that caught the sunset just right. At work, my email signature now read lead security engineer. My calendar had a slot blocked off for a cybersecurity conference in Seattle, an invite I'd accepted without hesitation. Not because I needed the recognition, but because it was a room full of people who spoke my language. One afternoon, I opened my mailbox and found an envelope with my father's handwriting. No return address, just my name in a script I'd once practiced copying in grade school. I didn't even break the seal. I walked it straight to the trash can, dropped it in, and let the lid fall shut. Closure, I'd learned, wasn't always a conversation. Sometimes, it was a single motion, wrist, elbow, done. The text came from a number I didn't recognize. Maya, it's Connor. Please don't block this. We need to talk. I kept reading. Olivia's parents want answers. They're threatening to postpone the wedding unless this is cleared up. Can we just explain it in a way that makes sense? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the receipts folder on my laptop. Dates, emails, photos, years of proof that I hadn't imagined a single slight. I compiled a neutral timeline, no adjectives, no insults, just facts. Who did what, when it happened. Then I sent it to Grandma Evelyn with a single line, for accuracy. She passed it to the wedding planner, who passed it to Olivia's parents. No drama. No names beyond what was necessary. By the time it reached the right hands, the air had shifted. Not loud, not explosive, just cold. The kind of cold that makes people stop smiling and start rethinking every story they've been told. Truth, I'd decided, travels faster when it isn't trying to perform. A week later, I opened LinkedIn and started typing. 3 short paragraphs, nothing more. No names, no family titles, no pointed fingers. Just a post about boundaries, in work and in life. I wrote about access, how it's earned, not owed. About the difference between shutting people out and simply protecting your peace. And about how security, whether digital or personal, isn't cruelty. It's clarity. I hit post and closed my laptop, expecting maybe a handful of polite comments from colleagues. By morning, my inbox was full. Strangers thanked me for giving them the words to say no without guilt. Old classmates sent messages like, I wish I'd read this 5 years ago. I hadn't named anyone. I hadn't told my story. But somehow, everyone who needed to understand, understood. 2 weekends later, I met Grandma Evelyn in Santa Fe. We chose a small cafe off Canyon Road, the kind with sun-warmed stucco walls and green chili stew that could cure almost anything. She reached across the table, her hands warm around mine. You look lighter, she said. I slid an envelope toward her, my handwriting across the front. This is for Mom and Dad. For conditions if they ever want contact again, family therapy, specific apologies, no using me for appearances, and full respect for my boundaries. If they can't meet those, it's no contact. Her eyes softened, but she didn't argue. I'll deliver it, she said. No promises on what they'll do with it. But I'll make sure it's in their hands. I nodded. That's all I need. We lingered over coffee, talking about my new neighborhood, my plans for the townhouse garden, the apple tree I wanted to plant in the spring. For the first time in years, the conversation about family didn't feel like a minefield, just a quiet exchange between 2 people who understood where the lines were, and why they mattered. Spring in Denver came early that year, soft rain soaking the soil and coaxing green from the ground. I planted a dwarf apple tree in the backyard, its thin branches tied gently to a wooden stake, ready to root and rise on its own. Inside, my home office hummed with the quiet confidence of a space built for my life, not someone else's expectations. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that smelled like fresh coffee every morning, and a view of Sloan's Lake that caught the light just right at sunset. I set up a small scholarship for local girls in STEM, just enough to buy books, pay lab fees, keep a dream alive. The kind of help I once needed and never got. I didn't wait for the phone to ring. I didn't scroll through old threads. I filled my calendar with hikes, conferences, dinners with friends who actually listen. Revenge, I'd learned, wasn't about winning a louder fight. It was about building a life so good, their opinion didn't matter. And as I stood in my backyard that evening, watching the apple tree sway gently in the breeze, I realized something. I wasn't just free from their drama. I was free, period. It had been over a year since I'd last seen Connor, and I hadn't planned on changing that statistic anytime soon. But fate has a dark sense of humor. The Denver Convention Center was buzzing with tech chatter, the kind of electric hum that comes from 1,000 minds swapping ideas. I was there as lead security engineer, representing our company at one of the largest cybersecurity conferences in the country. My name was printed in bold on the speaker schedule. I was halfway through a conversation with a potential partner when I heard it, my name, said with that familiar mix of surprise and calculation. Maya? I turned. Connor stood there in a tailored suit, looking polished but tired. His badge read Business Development, Hart Strategic Ventures. I didn't need the rest of the details, I knew exactly why he was here. He was courting the same investors I'd been meeting all morning. He smiled the way you do when you think you still have leverage. Small world. I didn't know you were speaking here. That's funny, I said, adjusting my badge. I didn't know you'd be pitching to the same people I'm already in talks with. His smile twitched. Maybe we can. I cut him off. Connor, this is a professional space. If you're here for business, keep it about business. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught one of the investors I'd just met watching us. They were clearly curious. Connor noticed too, and I saw the calculation flash across his face. Maybe we can work together, he said, voice lower now, for the family's sake. I took a slow sip of my coffee and set it down on the table between us. Connor, I think we both know I don't work for the family anymore. I left him there, standing in the middle of the conference hall, as my name was called from the main stage. When I stepped up to the podium, the bright lights caught the edge of my badge, and my company logo, just as Connor faded into the crowd. If this was a collision, I'd just walked away without a single scratch. 2 days after the conference, a thick white envelope slid through the mail slot at my townhouse. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no signature, just one line in a handwriting I knew too well. We should talk. Not for business. Not for the family. For me. I stood at the kitchen counter, the afternoon light spilling across the page. The words didn't feel like a trap this time, but I'd learned long ago that feelings could be deceiving. I folded the paper back into the envelope and set it on the bookshelf by the door, neither in the trash nor on my desk. Just, waiting. Outside, Sloan's Lake shimmered in the late-day sun, and the apple tree in my backyard swayed gently in the breeze. My life here was solid, rooted. But in the quiet between the rustle of leaves, I wondered. Was this the first crack in a wall I'd sworn would never fall? Or just another storm testing its strength? For now, the door stayed closed. But I hadn't locked it.
If this story resonated with you, leave a comment. Tell us, have you ever had to heal without an apology? And what gave you the strength to keep going anyway? Speech balloon, you never know. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Bell like, subscribe, and share if you believe in turning pain into power. And remember, your story isn't over. It's just beginning.